So I think the plan right now is we're going to stop the advance right here. We're not going to continue pushing into the Soviet Union. And the reason why is that I buffed them at the start of the game. They're not actually that close to capitulation right now. It'll still take a while. I'll probably need to cross the Ural Mountains and keep going before they actually cap. And this river here that I'm using as a defense line is already nice and stable. So I don't really want to keep advancing until I'm ready to actually commit to pushing into Asia. This isn't the base game. Your reward for taking down the Soviet Union isn't the end of the war like it is in vanilla. Instead, you're rewarded with a bunch of complicated front lines to defend. I have to defend down here and over here and all of this, and it just creates a big mess. So instead of doing all of that, we're going to stop right here and secure the flanks first. The Soviets pretty much don't have an industry anymore anyway, so we're going to focus on taking down the Scandinavian countries, then the UK, and then finally North Africa. We'll take the Gibraltar Strait and probably stop right here, potentially down here. This is actually one tile, this desert province, but we'll probably stop here in this tile instead. And we'll just hold there, hold the ports, and take all of North Africa, create a line somewhere around here. I don't actually have plans to take the rest of Africa, there's just no reason to. There's no major countries down here, so it's just more territory to defend. So we'll just create a line here and take the Suez Canal and create a line on the other side of it, and that will secure the entire Mediterranean and free up all our port guards. And only after we do all of that will we continue to advance into Asia. First we'll take down Greece though, and take this port in northern Russia. Since we're not advancing anymore into Asia as well, we might as well start building a few supply hubs. Supply is really bad over here right now. Okay, time to train up our paratroopers. Still be needed for the campaign into Sweden and Norway. Might as well call Austria into the war now too, just to see what they do. We'll also start working on clearing out the Baltic Sea with our naval bombers as well, and start eliminating the Swedish Air Force. The skies will need to be clear when our paratroopers get into position, so we might as well get started on that now. Time for the push into Finland. We'll largely just follow along the coast. We'll push and take these gaps between the lakes here, unassign a few units to block them off, and push towards Helsinki. In hindsight, I probably should have built the supply hubs a bit further back rather than right in the front line like this. Right now, due to these constant attacks, they're taking ages to build. I should have built more of them too. I'm not using my SYBS right now for anything else. I'm actually a bit surprised the Russians still have an army left. It was nowhere to be found when we were taking over the western portion of the Soviet Union, so I don't really understand how it's here now. They came out of nowhere. They're really starting to get annoying though. I'm going to have to babysit this front so they don't take my new supply hubs. The Allies sure do like their naval invasions. This is why we have a reserve army though. Now that I've taken back the ports there, I'm just going to let those units sit there in attrition for a while. I'm not going to push all the way up to the border just yet. I just want to hold the line by the supply hub and the port while I clean up the rest of this mess over here. I'm going to deploy a few extra units over here on this front. The Russians are proving to be a little bit stronger than I expected. Now I start building a few extra supply hubs. If I had started on them earlier, they'd already be done. And now we start preparing the offensive into Norway and Sweden. They still have so many units. At least they're all undersupplied though. I actually just noticed while I was editing this that Austria is trying to send me their army as an expeditionary force. I probably should have accepted that and found a way to use them, either as port guards or on the Russian front. I have tons of manpower in the field, but it's all tied up in these massive divisions, so my lines are actually quite thin right now and they could really use the extra help. But oh well. Once these paratroopers get into position, I've built up these airports a little, we'll launch the offensive. Alright, it's time to start the attack. I'll be using these paratroopers a bit unconventionally here. Rather than using them to land behind enemy lines to go after supply hubs and the like, I'm going to be using them on the front lines for overruns. Since they have the combat insertion ability, every time they land, they reduce the org of all the enemy units in the same state, making it easy to knock entire stacks of enemy units off a tile. Then, as they retreat, if you can land a paratrooper into the tile they're retreating to, you can overrun those retreating units, which is just as good as encircling them. And the craziest part is you don't even have to take that tile either. Just landing them is enough to cause an overrun, even if those paratroopers are still fighting. And just like that, a whole stack of units is gone. There's also a bit of a trick you can use here. Sometimes it isn't clear exactly which tile a group of enemy units is retreating to. An easy way to figure it out though is by clicking one of your units and sending it into a tile you think they might be retreating to and checking to see if the unit icons stack or not. If your unit's icon gets grouped together with their unit icons, then they are going to the same tile. If instead they're in separate groups, then they're not going to the same tile. This is the trick I'm using here, and it's why I'm sometimes sending my units in weird directions and cancelling the movement order right after. I'm trying to figure out where the enemy units are retreating to, so I know where to drop my paratroopers to overrun them. And there goes another 20 divisions. The craziest thing about this strategy is the stats on these paratroopers are completely irrelevant. These are 12 wits with no support companies. They can barely put up a fight, but due to their crazy speed and their abilities, it doesn't matter. The fact that they can overrun units without even taking the tile those enemy units are retreating to is crazy. Paratroopers might just be the most broken unit in the game because of that alone. This offensive would be so much more tedious without them. Because I keep getting pushed, I finally decide to make this a front line. I don't want any of my units to get encircled while I'm focusing on something else. And right there is another perfect example of why I really don't like frontline orders and battle plans. The game decided to send that unit, while it was in combat, way up north somewhere, causing it to instantly de-org from the strategic redeployment. And since it has no org now, it can't close this pocket behind it anymore. There's a gaping hole in the front line down here. Why would the game decide to send that unit hundreds of miles north instead of plugging the hole one tile over? I'll never understand that. Resistance is high enough now to disable strategic redeployment in the Soviet Union, so these new units have to walk all the way to the front. Because of that, I decide I don't want to deal with resistance anymore and finally form all the Reichskommissariats. It won't fix the issue, but at least it's not my issue anymore. One of the added benefits of forming the Reichskommissariats is that their former navies come back with them. A whole bunch of enemy ships suddenly became friendly ships that I no longer have to destroy. So even though the bot is terrible at managing them and gets them all destroyed almost immediately, the fact remains that I didn't have to fight them, which will make things a little easier later. Almost got that port back, but they reinforced it just in time, so I decided to just let them keep it for now. The supply is too low over here to take it back at the moment. I actually decided to make another port here to fix the supply situation to hopefully kick these guys back out of the Italian peninsula. And here's another useless battle plan. My units just refuse to take the free land in front of them, so I have to micro everything again. Those 3 divisions are so lucky right now. They are exactly 1 tile out of range of my paratroopers, so I can't overrun them. And these guys over here just walked right into an encirclement. Don't really understand why they thought that was a good idea, but okay. More free kills. Naval bombers are doing some really good work over here. finally, Sweden is down. Just have to finish up Norway now. Okay, next up we're going to finish cleaning up the Baltic Sea. The plan is to take these 3 islands over here to get rid of their last ports. That'll force the final ships trapped here out into the open, where I'll be able to finish them off with a combination of naval bombers and submarines. And now it's time to send all my fighters over to the west coast so I can start taking down the British Air Force. I'm actually putting my subs on strike force right now. Definitely not something you see every day, but the bot hasn't designed its ships to fight against submarines, so it proves to be pretty effective. I really should have been using subs on patrol as well instead of my cruisers. I ended up losing one there a bit unnecessarily. And that's the last of the ships in the Baltic Sea. Here I make a bit of a mistake. I should have retreated these subs once it became clear I was losing so many of them. For some reason I decided to keep them in this battle. I'm still pretty sure I out-traded them in terms of IC, but I took a bunch of needless losses. Now it's time to start the Battle of the Atlantic. The UK has about 350 ships right now and 23,300 planes. That's what they've got on October 15th. And we're going to try and keep track of those numbers over time so we can know how well this next phase of the campaign is going. We are trying to take down Britain right now, and there's really only two ways to do it. You can paradrop them, or you can launch a naval invasion. I actually can't do either right now, though. They have way too many planes for me to get the air superiority I need to send my paratroopers, and way too many ships to get the naval supremacy I need for a naval invasion. We need one of those two things to change before we can get anywhere. So the plan is to start convoy raiding. That leaves the AI with only two options in how to respond. They can either try to defend those convoys, or they can leave them undefended. In either case, we win though. If they don't defend their convoys, then they lose all their overseas resources, including all the rubber, which will destroy their aircraft production and allow us to slowly overtake them in the air, allowing us to eventually get the air superiority we need to paradrop them. If they do defend their convoys on the other hand, then my subs will start destroying all of their screens. The bot is really bad at designing ships for anti-submarine warfare, so by telling my subs to engage at high risk, they'll actually stick around and take some pot shots at those screens whenever they come across them, and those screens won't do much damage in return. Eventually, they'll run out of screens entirely and start using their capital ships for convoy escorts, and they'll slowly lose their whole navy. That'll allow us to overtake them at sea and eventually launch a naval invasion. So as long as we can destroy their screens faster than they can produce them, eventually we'll win no matter what they do in response here. So that's the plan. Convoy raid until we deplete their navy and send all our planes to fight their air force simultaneously, and depending on whether they run out of ships first or run out of planes, that will determine whether we launch a naval invasion or a paradrop to take them out. Already they're down 2,000 planes, and our subs are just raking in the kills right now. They are all sub 4s as well, so they've pretty much reached the theoretical limit for how good they can be. We have more than enough spare chromium to afford that. 20,000 planes left in their stockpile. Only 675 convoys too. They might actually run out of those. They've only got 283 surface ships remaining. We've destroyed about 70 of them so far. $477 ships sunk in 1 month is crazy. There's no way they can keep up with losses like these. I'm going to try to let my teammates be useful here. I'm going to let them try to retake their land instead of doing it myself. And that's another 400 ships for the month of December. 254 remaining. This is interesting. By looking at that graph, you can see that there's a dip in the number of convoys they're losing. That made me suspicious that they changed up their trading routes or that I had left a sea zone or two open for them to trade through by mistake. And sure enough, there was a gap in the north here allowing them to trade with Russia, so I added those sea zones to the convoy rating. And sure enough, now they're losing all their convoys again. Only 200 left. And here we can see that the strategy is actually working pretty well. It's been 3 months and the airplane stockpile is down by about 30%. So at this rate, it should take about 8 more months for them to run out completely. So sometime around August, that'll probably be when I can invade. I've got a fleet of minesweepers out here too. A lot of these sea zones are just full of mines right now, and I don't want them to take out any of my ships. I'm mass-producing refineries to keep upping my plane production. I'm losing just a little bit more than I'm making, but I'm limited by rubber. There's actually a trick I could have used here to massively save on resources, especially on rubber, but unfortunately I did not know it at the time. It was a trick I learned after this campaign. It exploits the conversion mechanics. By having 2 production lines, you can build one version of a fighter that has everything on it except for self-sealing fuel tanks, and then a second line that adds just that. Then by converting the planes in the first line to the type in the second line, it costs way less rubber overall at the cost of using more mills. That would have been very helpful right about now. My production is also a bit of a mess. I have 732 mills, and I don't have the resources to use them all. I've stolen so much equipment that I don't even need them anymore, so I've started mass producing these terrible medium tanks to be used in garrison divisions to boost hardness and take less losses. I can't think of anything else to use these factories for. They're losing planes so quick, you can see the intel changing in real time. Only 8,000 more to go. This is annoying right here. They took the first port a while ago, so I retreated and built a new one. Now they've taken that one too while I wasn't paying attention. I'm going to need to retreat again for now. I'll take these ports back later once Britain is down. It's been quite some time since I've seen a 6,000 soft attack division. Veteran units are just so much stronger than regulars. We're in the final phase of the plan now. Since they no longer have an air force, I can now get away with convoy raiding in the channel. I couldn't before because it was a shallow sea, which would have left my subs vulnerable to naval bombers. But those aren't a threat anymore now that I have total air superiority, so I can tighten the noose a little more. Eight carriers lost this month. They're starting to lose all their capitals now. We can now start preparing the naval invasion. Any day now we should get naval supremacy. For a single moment we had naval supremacy, and that single moment was enough to launch. A lot of players like landing near Dover or near Hull, but I'm more partial to Scapa Flow in the north because there's an isolated port next to a strait. This means that even in the worst case scenario where our invasion gets pushed out, they'll find it extremely difficult to get that last port back due to the naval invasion penalty they'll have when trying to cross over to it. It's also the most lightly defended region in the UK. The terrain in the area is also full of mountains, making it really easy to establish a foothold and defend it. I immediately start building up the supply in the area too, because I have no idea how long it'll be before we capitulate the UK. We might get bogged down here for months, or it could take only a few weeks. If this is the best defense they can mount, then this won't take very long at all. And there goes the UK. And that seems like a good place to stop this episode. In the next part, we'll be focusing on North Africa and we'll be doing some island hopping. I want to reduce their naval range in the Atlantic so that I don't need to guard the French coast anymore. So I'll be landing in Iceland and Greenland and all the other islands in between. I don't intend to land in North America yet though. My whole army is stuck in Asia right now and I can't afford to move it. North America will be the last place we invade, I think. Instead, we just want to contain them by taking all the islands between us. In any case, we'll do all that next time.